All right, so we are back here on another Friday afternoon. Ellis Joshua and Coach Wink for another edition of Weekly Crossbar. Coach Wink, how you doing here this afternoon?
Oh, I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling great. I'm a little short on sleep, just as well I know you are, but
Yeah, a little bit.
for good reason. For good
Yeah.
reason. Oh, the phone's ringing. I got to put it on silence, and that's our apparel guy. I just asked him to call me, and that was a bad move, as I sent him an email right when I'm just about to jump on a podcast with my boy Ellis. Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, we watched a lot of great lacrosse this week, and I want the whole world to know about it. So I'm going to start with the last Friday. Coach Wink had to babysit my daughter's grandkids, so Ellis was solo, and he got to. That was a game I definitely wanted to go to, but family comes first. And you
True.
got to see Northport Melville, which is always a great game.
Yeah, so that's one of those classic rivalries in Suffolk Class A. So that game was over at Northport High School, and I mean that was one where we could see these teams potentially down the line in the playoffs again, but this time around Northport got the win 10-9. And Ward Melville, they made it close at the end, but generally speaking, like Northport was pretty much in control of that game. So just want to talk about some of the Tiger standouts, starting with them. We could talk about, from an offensive standpoint, Jack Delaberti, the attackman going to Ohio State. Delaberti, he had a big day. He was 3-1, I believe. Also, Luca Almale from the midfield. He was pivotal for Northport. He had a couple of goals, and assist as well. Also, I think he was big in the clearing game for Northport. Then going to Quinn Reynolds. I mean, we were kind of talking about him last night, Coach Wink, and you were asking me just about how he played in that game. And I thought Quinn Reynolds was awesome. I mean, we've seen him a number of times now, and like whether he's getting ground balls, clearing the balls, clearing the ball, he can score as well. And it was just interesting too, because from my perspective, I was kind of on the side with the Ward Melville fan base, and like the student section was there. They were lively, and they were talking some smack to the Northport players. But Quinn Reynolds, who it seemed like he was hearing it a bit, but he did not let that phase him at all. And he was big time for Northport. He had a couple goals as well. And then also from a defensive standpoint, Giancarlo Valenti, the long pole, he had he had a couple of big plays, I thought, because there was one play. This was early on in the game in the first quarter, I believe, where he had a turnover. He had a nice trail check, got the ground ball, and then Northport was able to clear it in transition and get the goal, which I believe was scored by Delaberti for one of his three. But that was like a huge turning point from a defensive standpoint, with Northport able to get a stop and then turning it into a goal. And then later on in the game, as Ward Melville was trying to mount a comeback when they were down by 4 or 5, Ward Melville had scored a goal. And then on the following faceoff, Northport comes up with the faceoff when it's Valenti with the ground ball. And then he goes down the chute and he has a big goal to put them back up by 2, which I thought that was huge to kind of like stave off that Ward Melville momentum that they kind of had building up there. But I thought he had some pivotal moments in that one. And then in the goal, Quinn Napolitano, he had a number of big time saves for Northport. Again, just kind of keeping Ward Melville at bay as they were able to mount a comeback and get it to 1, but unable to end up tying that game. And I thought Napolitano, he had a great day in the net for Northport in that game.
Any Melville kids stand out for you?
Yeah, for Ward Melville, I would say Zach Brittman, Steven Rosano as well for Ward Melville. In goal in the first half, Gavin DeFeedy, he was in the net for the Patriots. I thought he had some nice saves for them. But that was just one of those games where Northport, they kind of jumped on them early on in that one and were able to build enough of a lead to hold on. So Ward Melville, they get a goal with about 5 seconds left in the game. I believe that goal was scored. I believe it was Brittman with about 5 seconds left. But by the time like the ensuing faceoff happened, by the time anyone secured possession, time just ran out on them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those two teams are, part of the Final Four, and the A's. We'll talk about a couple of major upsets last night that kind of shuffling around the A seeds, but those two, they're perennial powers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're battling it out again, either in the semis or the finals. That was on Friday. Saturday, what did we do? A triple header Saturday
Yeah. Saturday we had a triple header.
in the
Started at
beautiful
10
rain.
a.m.
That was a crappy weather day, but a great lacrosse day.
Yeah, it was. It started off like really it was the wind. The wind was brutal. And like
Yeah,
it only got worse as the day went on.
do you remember we thought it was the South Shore until we got up to St.
Right.
Aid, and we're like, no, it's all Long Island. It's not
Yeah.
just Wantagh. The Wantagh Sacred Heart game, that was an OT game. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about these ladies. Both these teams are ranked, on Long Island in our top 24, and both of them are going to be fighting out for their championships.
Yeah. So that was a very well played game as expected. And as you mentioned, that one going into overtime and Sacred Heart pulling out the win there in OT. So they got the game winning goal in overtime by Colleen Thieck. And she was obviously huge for Sacred Heart coming up with the game winner. But even before that, she had a couple of big goals in that game as well, early on in that matchup. But that was one where Sacred Heart, they built a 3-goal lead. So they were up 5-2 at one point. And then Wantagh, next thing you know, they kind of just turned the tables. I think it started on the defensive end, able to come up with some stops and then able to get the ball back and turn a 5-2 deficit into a lead at one point, leading 7-6. This is in the fourth quarter, and it looked like they might hang on. But down the stretch, Sacred Heart, they got the tying goal from Liz Darcy. And we were standing there watching, and she was just wide open on the crease. And that was one where they didn't miss her. So Riley Kirchner with that feed, and they got the tying goal, and then able to force overtime. And actually, to be honest, I thought Sacred Heart could have won it in regulation, but a big stop by Bridget Smith and coming up with a deflection and a ground ball to kill the clock at the end of the fourth. So that took us to OT, and that was where the game winner was won by Thieck. But Thieck played very well for Sacred Heart. Allie Reesner, the freshman, stepping up big for the Spartans, and that's huge. Like when you have a freshman making that type of impact on a program like Sacred Heart, Reesner on the draw circle, in the ground, in the ground ball department. She stuck a free position. This was like in the first quarter of the game. I thought she played very well. Defensively, of course, Caitlin Cole, the BC commit for the Spartans. I mean, she always makes her presence known, like super trustworthy with clearing the ball. You always want the ball in her stick on that end, as she's always going to make great decisions. So those were some of the standouts I thought for Sacred Heart in that game. And then if you want to talk about Wantagh, Sienna Diglio, I thought on both ends, both scoring a couple goals, but also defensively as well. She had some defensive plays, a couple forced turnovers in that first half. Sabrina Azadurian, she had a couple of goals for Wantagh. Actually, she had the go-ahead goal in that fourth quarter to give them the 7-6 lead. Then also Juliana Sarasi for Wantagh as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Bridget Smith on the defensive end.
Azadurian looks like she's making some noise. Like every time I look at a box score, she's involved.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, Wanto's got some dogs. I mean, I left that game when it was going to overtime so that I could get to the next game to start, doing our thing. And I missed the OT winner.
We were IG Live for that one.
You and IG Live for that one. That's
Yeah.
good. That's cool. That's cool. How many? We've had 2 IG Lives this year.
Yeah, 2 IG Lives, both overtime games.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So you met me up at St. Anthony's, New Canaan, the 2 national powers, both of them ranked in the top 5 in the country. That was at St. Anthony's. And I got there. I think you showed up in the second quarter. I got the first quarter. St. Anthony's jumped on them early. They went up as much as 8-1. Canaan fought back, made it interesting in the fourth. And I think what was the final? 11-8? Is that correct?
10-7.
10-7. I mean, standouts. The all-world Tess Calabria, I think she was 5-1. She played her normal great game. Binkus was great on the circle. Jenna Binkus, the USF commit. Calabria, for those that know it, is going to Carolina. Defensively, I thought they were really good in the first half. Second half, they let them back in. New Canaan has got some dogs. They got a kid, Devin Russell, who's going to
Yeah.
BC, who's just she's a beast. Like
Yeah,
she
I
had
remember
one goal.
I
That was
remember seeing her from Juniors Open the first time 2 years ago.
yeah. I mean, she's got all of the tools. I mean, BC's obviously recruits blue chippers and stuff, but St. Anthony's is definitely a team that if they continue to get better every week, they got a shot. They got a shot to be one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country. I mean, right now, I mean, I don't know who does the rankings and stuff. I don't really like the rankings nationally because it's very hard to compare. I think it's easier for us because we get to see them play each other. You know what I mean? Like, you don't play somebody, how do you say who's better? You know, so we'll see. But right now, we'll talk a little bit about St. Anthony's at the end of this podcast. St. Anthony's looks like the real deal, and Darcy Messina, who took over the program this year, I think she's the real deal. She's an intense coach. She brings a lot of passion,
Yeah.
and these girls they look pretty buttoned up. And then after that game, we headed over to which is one of our funnest rivalry games, the boys Huntington Cold Spring Harbor matchup, which I believe Cold Spring Harbor had won like 9 or 10 in a row.
Yeah,
Going,
I think their winning streak dated back to 2014, I believe.
but as you know, you covering the game, it
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a Seahawk day.
Yeah, this time around it went to the home team, went to the Blue Devils. So they got the win 10-5 in that one. And some of the standouts for Huntington, I mean, you could talk about Colin Lennon. Colin Lennon was 1-4 in that game. So really doing a big job in terms of distributing for Huntington, racking up assists that led to goals. Thomas Giamonti, he was 3-1 on the day. Brian Rabanko, he had a hat trick with 3 goals. Will Fallon, he came up with 12 saves, only allowing 5 goals. And that was one of those games where I feel like, because if you date back to last year, Huntington almost got them last year. They came back, they were down by 4, maybe 5 goals, came back, took the lead, and then Cold Spring Harbor won it at the end. But I feel like this time around, I feel like Huntington may have gone into this one thinking like we can get them, like we got to get them this year because like they were oh so close last year, but this year they didn't even really leave it up for grabs. Like they were able to jump on Cold Spring Harbor, and their defense was able to hold it down, only allowing 5 goals. But that's a big win for the Blue Devils, of course, with this crosstown rivalry that dates back for quite some time. And just post game, I know all those guys were fired up and getting that trophy that's going back to Huntington now. Like those guys, they knew obviously how much of a big deal a game like that is, because that's one of those games. Like if you're a member of the Huntington squad, like you'll look back on that and like that's one of those games you'll remember, like beating your crosstown rivals, being the team that kind of ended the streak. So that's huge for them.
Yeah, yeah, and they played well. They played very well, and I think Huntington's a team that is progressing. They're getting better every week because we saw them in their first game, and
Yeah.
now this is probably what their 7th or 8th game that we saw them in.
Yeah, I think they might have even played a few more than that actually.
Yeah, they
Might be
played a
like
few after it as well.
right.
But that was an impressive. So that was on Saturday, and then Sunday you and I tried to recover. Monday, we split up. We broke up the band. You know, it was a little sad, but I went over and covered Garden City, Darien at GC. You covered Pequa at Mount Sinai. To talk about the GC Darien game, to start, I showed up at 4 with our boy Christian to cover the game. There was nobody on the field. It looked like I was at the wrong place. I was walking by a couple dads from Darien. They told me that the Darien bus was literally parked. He showed me on his phone because his daughter was on the team. You know how they have like find your phone type of thing? You can find your kids on a phone.
Yeah.
And they were parked on the Throgs Neck Bridge for like 2 hours.
Oh, yeah, that
So
sounds.
that game didn't get going until close to 5:30. It was a really good game. Garden City lost the game 10-9, but literally dominated the draw circle. I was blown away. They must have won.
That's a rarity.
It's such a rarity in girls lacrosse. I think they won 67% of the draws. And our girl Kendall Morris, who's going to ASU, going to be a little Tempe. What's ASU? The Sun Devils?
Yeah, the Sun Devils.
The Sun Devils. There's a lot of sun out there. That makes total sense. So she killed it on the draw circle. They fell behind, but fought back. GC's got a lot of grind on this team. Dave Enger's got his pulse on this team because when they fell behind like 8-4, called a timeout, then they fought back. Darien was just a little too much. Darien's loaded. I mean, they got kids going to Yale, Duke.
Duke.
Their backup goalie is going to Princeton on the Darien varsity team. It's like the girl that doesn't see the field is going to Princeton.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. It's nuts. They're talented. Coached by Lisa Lindley, who's an unbelievable coach. That was a great matchup of coaches, Ettinger and Lindley. It felt like one of those Parcells Belichick type things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go back to the football thing when Parcells and Belichick used to coach against each other.
Yeah.
I felt that. That's what I was feeling, like both coaches. But Darien came up on top. Darien was ranked in the top. I think they were ranked 1 or 2 in the country. And then you got to cover Pequa Sinai. That was a good game, right?
Yeah, that one was a shootout. So kind of similar to you. So I got there at 5 o'clock, and because I wasn't sure if the game was at the high school or at Burner. So I went to the high school first, and I saw the Pequa boys warming up, but like Mount Sinai wasn't there. So I was like, okay, at least I know the game is here. So got to just hang out for a little bit, around an hour before that game. Saw some of the Pequa girls there too. Saw like Paige Gargiulo and company. So shout out to the Pequa girls team. But yeah, so the boys, they ended up winning that one 15-10 over Mount Sinai. And just talking about some of the standouts for Massapequa. How about the freshman Rocco Spallina? I mean, that's a name, obviously.
That's a pretty famous name in lacrosse on Long Island.
Yeah, the Spallina name, of course, that's a legendary name in the lacrosse community. And over in Massapequa, you got the freshman Rocco, who was 3-1 on the day. And he did a lot of his damage in the first quarter. And it was a back and forth first quarter, actually. Sinai ended up leading after 4-3. But Pequa ended up getting the win. But Spallina, 3-1. Then how about Wieserek, starting with Ryan Wieserek. He had a couple of big plays, I thought. Like, he's one of those players where it's like, he's one of those guys, I feel like, just kind of comparing like poles on the island. He's kind of like a Joe Filardi type, I feel like, where it's like, he's going to do something that's going to be highlight worthy, whether it's a big time strip and a cause turnover or like a transition pole goal. And like, he ended up having both, to be honest. He had a great defensive check that led to a turnover, and Massapequa ended up turning that into a transition goal by Spallina. Then he ended up scoring a couple goals himself. So I thought Wieserek was big all over the field. Then the younger Wieserek, who's also a freshman, Nolan Wieserek, he had a couple goals in that game as well. So Pequa, they have some young guns that are going to be some household names, you figure, for the next few years. But then you can also talk about Jack Gargiulo. He was 2-2 on the day. Tyler Burns, he was 4-1 for Massapequa. So the offense really came out in full force, I would say, for Massapequa, putting up 15 goals on Mount Sinai. And then just kind of shifting over to Mount Sinai, some of their standouts. I thought the sophomore, Dante Spadaro, he was big, especially in the first half, because he ended up with 3 goals. I believe all came in that first half when that game was kind of still up for grabs there, and it was back and forth. I thought Spadaro, he played very well, showing I thought a lot of confidence in his game. Lucas LaForge, he was 2-2 for Mount Sinai. Nick Coretta, he had 3 goals as well. I believe he was 3-1. Tommy Massaro at the faceoff X, he had a big play actually going back to the first quarter that actually gave Mount Sinai the lead because they scored back-to-back goals rather quickly. And like right at the end of the first quarter, Massaro, he wins the faceoff and then pushes up the field and then drops it off to, I believe it was Nick Coretta, who ended up scoring with about maybe 4 or 5 seconds left in that first quarter to give Mount Sinai the lead there. But those are just like some of their standouts. But no shortage of offense in that one, that's for sure. But Peak able to pull away there, I would say, in probably the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game to build a 4 and 5 goal lead.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Massapequa's had some interesting games this year. We'll talk a little bit about them, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about our rankings.
Oh, also should mention Michael Romeo for Mount Sinai in the net. He had 13 saves. So
that's a good day.
Yeah, don't want to leave him out.
That's a good day. And then we went to our gate game of the week on Tuesday night, which was a rescheduled due to bad weather. Not that we haven't had bad weather every day since we started lacrosse season. And that was another, I would consider, Cold Spring Harbor Boys crosstown rival against Syosset Braves. And this one, I would say, the ending was one for the ages. The ending of this game, if anybody gets an opportunity, go to our YouTube channel and put on the Syosset Cold Spring Harbor game from April 16th. We streamed 2 games this week, Tuesday and Thursday. Normally we'll just do one a week, but this one was obviously a delayed one, and that's why we did it. And Cold Spring Harbor, I would say, had the game in hand.
It looked like,
what were they up, 10-6 at one point?
They led by as many as 5. They led 9-4 at one point. And then I believe going into the fourth, it was 9-5. So they had a good stranglehold on that game, you would have thought, up by 4 going into the fourth.
Right. And obviously it seemed like Cold Spring Harbor was going to hold on. And it almost was like, I think it came right after a timeout and the floodgates just opened for Syosset. The kid going to Hopkins,
David Disque.
if this kid keeps developing the way I think he will, I think this kid's going to make a lot of noise at Hopkins. David Disque, is that how you say his name?
David Disque.
This kid he looks like a Canadian box lacrosse player. And he was a hockey kid, which maybe is part of it. I don't know if he ever played box lacrosse, but he looks like a box player. And he just could get to all his spots.
He can get wherever he wants, like whenever he wants.
I want to talk about a couple of Cold Spring Harbor standouts because I don't want to forget about them. I want to talk about the kid Mazzy, who leads the team in points. Who's probably, what would you say? He's 5'6"?
Yeah, give or take around there.
Stocky kid, tough as nails. His first goal, I think he went through a triple team for the goal.
He was like playing bully ball in that first quarter.
Yep. And then the kid Ryan McGloin played awesome.
Oh, wow. That ending.
Well,
he was the hero.
We don't want to get to the ending yet. I thought Bruno played great. I thought Bauer played well, the Michigan commit. I thought Pisano played great. Trying to think who else stood out for Cold Spring. I don't want to forget about them. And it's funny, we went down to the field before the game. I wanted Ellis to get a little Coach Bond, Coach Calabria vibe, like that pregame tension. And there was a track meet before the game. And the Oyster Bay track team had not gotten off the Cold Spring Harbor sideline. And you could see the smoke coming out of the ears of Coach Bond. It looked like a teepee. When smoke comes out of a teepee?
Yeah. I was going to say one of those like one of those like animated cartoons, like
Yes,
faces boiling red steam coming out of his ears.
yes. And Coach Bond was holding it together, but you could tell he was not happy that these kids had not gotten, and then they leave all their water
Well,
bottles. Coach
that's
Bond,
that's the thing. Like I think it's more so that like all their stuff was just left there.
yeah, it was spewed around like they left it in their bedroom. You know, boys have dirty bedrooms generally. It looked,
Yeah.
and he was ooh, but I think his fire kind of seeped into the Seahawk team because the team came out ready to play.
Yeah, they did. They plus they were coming off of the loss to Huntington too. So it's like you had to like kind of mull over that for a couple days and then try and look for a bounce back win in another rivalry game against a team that's now in the same conference as you as well.
Yeah. But then when Syosset turned it on and Disquay started to like take over, they got it to 10-9, right? It was 10-9 with probably like
It was on
no,
the final was 10-9.
so it was 9-8 then.
Right.
And then at 9-8, Coach Bond took out his senior goalie and put in a freshman,
Yeah.
right?
Maddie
About
came
4 minutes left.
Yeah, Maddie came where the freshman came in down the stretch in the fourth.
And then all of a sudden, he makes a point blank save. And it looks like they're going to hold on. The ball bounces out. Nick Turner gets his hands on the ball, splits a kid, and a lefty bouncer in the top corner with what, like 11 seconds to go or something stupid, or 25 seconds?
Yeah, it was definitely inside of 30 seconds. It was inside of 30. It was somewhere in that 20 to 25 range, I would say.
And then they go to the faceoff X tied 9-9.
Yup.
Right? So we're thinking OT. We were all feeling OT.
Yeah, that was the vibes. You were feeling like it was gonna go to overtime.
Yeah, we were definitely feeling OT. And then Sam Bruno,
Oh,
who so they face it off. It's Bruno and who's he face against?
Azevedo.
Acevedo. So Acevedo and Bruno are battling. It's like three guys. It's the wings, the face-off guy, the ball. You could see it on the video. I know he posted Tyler Kress's great video of it. He picks up the ground ball in Syosset zone. He's not even in the offensive zone. He's in the defensive zone, probably about 5 yards above the restraining line. And he gets it in his stick and he flips it like
He was
20 yards, right? It was about 15-yard
Yeah,
flip.
yeah, and he was being, I mean, not only is it a savvy play, but like he was being swarmed. Like the strength you gotta have to be able to get that ball out of your stick and get it up to McGloin as far as he did. Like that was just so impressive. And obviously that was huge.
And then McGloin with the clock running down, like I think he probably caught the ball at around 5, 6, or 7 seconds. I don't even know the exact number. And then ran to the strain line and bounced one. What do you go, 5-0 on it?
Yeah, it looked like it.
And the place went absolutely berserk.
It was sheer madness at the end. It was unbelievable. I mean, when we saw it happen, we had the simultaneous goal call on the live stream, and it was like it was just shocking that that had just happened.
Yeah,
Like at at the buzzer,
yeah.
no time left whatsoever.
A little controversy. A little controversy.
Yeah,
Very hard.
it was
Very hard to tell.
they
Um,
they said it was good, and not only that, they didn't huddle up to even discuss it.
no,
I mean, I
the
know
guy at the goal
you can't
line said
review
it
it
was good.
obviously, but like there was no even like huddling up like what's the call here? That straight up it was good.
Yeah, McGloin went into his celebration, his sprint, and he was mauled,
Oh yeah.
absolutely mauled. And it was chaotic, but it was a cool ending, for a high school lacrosse game. I know we're gonna complete the week and talk about the next two games. But I think what we'll do is we'll take a little break and
Mhm.
we'll do because obviously when we do these podcasts, the window of time, we want to make sure the quality of the podcast as well as the video is at its utmost. So
Yeah.
we'll jump back.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up part 1 here of this podcast, and coming up shortly will be part 2, continuing to recap the week.